He's here. Now broadcasting from the wide open spaces of McLendon-Chisholm, Texas, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with the greatest threat to Rockwall County's liberal left, a true conservative and our leader, Bunker Bob.
Well, good morning on a I guess, what is today? Wednesday? Thursday morning. That's right. We all survived, I guess, we all survived the tornadoes, which was good. That was obviously somewhat frightening. So I'm glad that you're here with me today, and it's good to be back. Obviously, we had a second City Council meeting last night of the new City Council, and I'm going to basically do a review of what happened. And again, I want to thank the City of McLendon-Chisholm, the mayor, the City Council for broadcasting these City Council meetings. When they do something right, I'm going to highlight and demonstrate my appreciation for them. And that's certainly one of them. So it is very helpful to be able to see what's going on at City Council without having to actually having to be there. And that's a very important thing because citizens really do have a right and a responsibility to know what's going on in their city and not have to worry about what's going on with, and be able to kind of come back to it and see what's going on. So I want to begin by talking about the city accountant, and this is an issue, and I'm basically going to be going down through the agenda and just giving you a cursory overview of what's going on and highlight the things that are important. And I want to also highlight that next Thursday, I'll have former council member Scott Turnbull on the show, and possibly next Monday, I may even have the Iron Lady, council member Adrian Balcom, on the show. So this will help to enhance and put our focus on a few things within the agenda that we really want to emphasize. So generally, I just want to kind of start by emphasizing the fact that the city accountant is remaining the same. Ray Smith, a guy that I've worked well with, that has served our city well. He's been the city accountant for a long time, but I think that the city council made a good decision by keeping him on. He is someone who does not work inside the city limits. He doesn't work at City Hall. He is an independent contractor and has very little engagement with city council, except when he comes before City Council. So the ability to keep those things separate is really important. He works with the city administrator, Lisa Palomba, and she is doing a very good job in her role on that as well. So I want to. I think they made a good decision. I know there was a lot of discussion about whether or not to go with a new accounting firm, but for our city, it's not. There's not a lot of things in the city budget that calls for a big firm. So having a small boutique type firm handling our accounting is a really good thing. So I commend the city council for doing that. And so the next thing I really want to focus on is going to be Sonoma Verde and the PID, and the first of that is going to be the city the administrator for the PID. And this is something that I talked about on the last show, where the Rockwall County Rockwall CAD, the Rockwall Appraisal District, the Rockwall Appraisal District, which is not associated with the county. It's a state agency. It's really kind of an out-of-control organization to begin with, but the fact that they are choosing winners and losers and that they are dictating what company the cities in Rockwall County have to use, I think is a really bad idea, and it's bad for the city. It really doesn't help. I think it causes more problems than it solves. However, the city council, I think, their arms were tied on this issue. They either went with the pit administrator that the Rockwell CAD required, or they would no longer be able to put the assessment, if you will, for the PID, those people who live in Sonoma Verde, they would no longer be able to put that assessment on their tax bill. They would actually, it would require the city to go out and bill and the homeowners directly rather than it coming in on the tax bill. That's problematic for a lot of reasons, especially if we're trying to keep the city small and the overhead small, the size and scope of government, which is what is important to me. And I know that a lot of you who are watching, it's important to you as well. So the P3 Works is who the organization, or excuse me, who the city council agreed to use, and the former pit administrator had done a good job for the most part, but I think there's going to be a big ramp up to understanding what the PID is. I do want to make sure that you understand that the PID, the Public Improvement District, is how the developer funds the development, the infrastructure of the Sonoma Verde development. So it's similar to a MUD. The only difference is that a PID is administered by the city, and a MUD is administered by a for lack of a better word, a committee, an appointed committee. And the PID, the other difference, significant difference to homeowners, is that once the cost of the lot that was assessed based upon the total cost of the development infrastructure within the phase of development, once the cost of that lot for the homeowner has been paid, it is paid. So I think the average cost per lot for the PID is assessed at around $20,000. It may be, I think it's more than that, but I'm just giving a round number. So when someone moves into the Sonoma Verde development, they basically are paying into as part of their insurance, as part of their taxes, they're also contributing to the PID. And so there's two parts of that PID, that Public Improvement District. The first part pays off their lot. The second part goes toward paying for the long-term maintenance of the development, so the streets and the sewers and things like that. Once that lot is paid, as I said, it's finished. There's no more assessment for the lot cost that goes into being billed to the homeowner, and that includes when the homeowner sells the lot or their house with the lot on it. That new homeowner has no PID to be assessed. So the PID administrator, their job is to ensure two things: one, that everyone is being billed properly, and that the money is coming in, but more importantly, and this is the key, that the infrastructure, that the amount of money that is going into the long-term maintenance fund of the PID is sufficient to maintain any changes or needs that the development is going to have. So if a street goes bad, or if there's a sewer line that goes out, or a sewer, what's called a lift station goes out, that would be all funded through that portion of the PID. And when I was mayor, I was frankly concerned that not enough is being assessed, and we didn't increase it, but I thought that was one of the things that we were starting to look into, because it appears as though that there's not enough being assessed. I could be wrong. I hope I am. I like to be wrong on things like that. But ultimately, let's say that there is a cost that something is going on that there is a street that needs repair or a sewer line that needs repair, something like that. Whenever something like that happens, if there's not enough money in the account, in that maintenance account, well, the city then has to pay for the difference, and then on the next tax bill, whatever that difference is divided up against all of the lots that are within that phase of development, and all of those lots will be assessed whatever that difference is on the next tax bill. So the city basically carries, the lack of a better term, the note, the what is owed for about a year, but those homeowners are then going to be slapped with not just their regular PID, but then an additional PID, which is why a PID administrator is so important, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with the development itself. So whether or not there were some a couple of individuals who complained that the development of Sonoma Verde was not meeting the what was being advertised by the home builders, and I'm not sure that it or maybe even possibly the developer. And there, unfortunately, throughout the meeting, when the issues related to the PID were going on, you have several members of council asking questions to the PID administrator about why these things are not being taken care of, why the promises made by the developer or home builders were not being fulfilled. And the PID administrator's like, I don't know anything about that. I don't have any ability to change that. That's not my deal. So it was fun. It was, if you watch the city council meeting, it almost becomes funny because they keep asking kind of the same kinds of questions that goes along with that. So it's really kind of it was. I think what's important here, in Russell Phillips, the developer of Sonoma Verde, did attend the meeting. A lot of what he said was not heard online because he moved away from the microphone. But ultimately, Russell was there to kind of bring the council up to speed on what the PID administrator does, what he's doing, and also to explain that there is an assessment, or there's a new a preliminary PID, PID number 2, which basically is covering the next phase of development, which has basically already been moved forward. And so one of the things that was important about that is that the gentleman from Hilltop Securities, who basically help secure the funding and the PID money and things like that, they're basically saying, this is kind of a done deal. You can't really modify these PID agreements. This is somewhat of the reason Hilltop is there, and the reason the PID administrator is kind of in focus on the issue there is simply because they're responsible to make sure that the financial obligation of the PID administrator is being met. Has nothing whatsoever to do with the development. The fact that there is a new PID, basically a PID number 2, which basically is associated with the second phase of development. And I could be wrong. It may be the third phase of development. I remember when the developer of Sonoma Verde came in and talked to us. There was, I think, originally like 4 or 5 different phases of development, but what ended up happening is he basically lumped several phases in together. So regardless, there is what is on the agenda, resolution of preliminary PID number 2, which is basically something that has already been established. Hilltop is there to establish that, yes, all of the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. This is more of a formality, and yet it didn't stop it didn't stop the council from asking questions of Russell Phillips and the guy from Hilltop. Would you be willing, to asking questions about the timeline, the baseball fields, soccer fields? And bottom line, the guy from Hilltop basically said you can't change the PID agreement. Russell Phillips did say that he's happy to give a timeline to the city council, and which he's done before, and I'm sure he will follow through on again. So that's the PID. So you had so they accepted, by the way, they approved the P3 Works as the PID administrator. They approved the preliminary PID number 2, and then they had a resolution calling assessment for a public hearing on the assessment for the PID of 2019. Now, here's the thing. The reason the PID, and what's different, one thing I didn't mention about the difference between a MUD and a PID, the MUD, the assessment on the lot never goes away. On a PID, it does, like I said. Now, there is every year the city council has to reestablish and reevaluate, is the second portion of that assessment on the PID, is it sufficient to meet the long-term projected needs of the development, of the phase of development? So they're basically going to be holding a public hearing, and the purpose is to determine whether or not the homeowners want it, which they never do. It's understandable why they wouldn't, especially if some of the things promised to them are not being met. I get that. That doesn't, but that has nothing to do with the PID. So as far as the long-term maintenance of the PID, the fact that the PID does fund the infrastructure of the development, that it does fund the baseball parks and the swimming pools and things like that, that's why I think some homeowners are concerned, and I understand that. But what was interesting is Lorna Kippett asked the guy from Hilltop Securities if she asked, in your opinion about phase 1, did they meet their agreements? And the guy from Hilltop is saying, well, they met the standards of the financial agreements, but he couldn't talk about the issues related to whether or not the developer is meeting their standards. Bottom line, as far as that goes, it's really not the city council's responsibility to make sure that those obligations are being met. That is a civil issue, not one that government takes up. If a developer is not following through on what they promised, well, then that's a civil matter that homeowners have a right to take up in court. But to bring it before the city council is problematic for a lot of reasons. And it kind of goes to the fact that there's so much irrelevant discussion occurring at city council at this time that it really causes me some great pause as to do these people really understand what the PID is, how it works, and how the PID administrator is a part of this. So there is going to be a public hearing on June 11, 2019, and it will be comments on the proposed assessment plan for 1C and Phase 2. So that's now I remember. So Russell Phillips, he changed the phases from 1, 2, and 3 to Phase 1, A, B, and C. And then Phase 2, which is where the PID, the second preliminary PID comes in, is going to be also discussed at that public hearing. So if you live in Sonoma Verde, that's something that you may want to attend. You may want to get familiar with. I think it's very important that people who move into Sonoma Verde read the documents that they sign when they purchase their home, so that they understand that they're a part of a PID. So many people don't understand that, and I think a part of that, as kind of we discovered when I was on city council and mayor, was that I think that there is a difference between a realtor and a salesperson. So when someone is selling you a home from one of the home builders, I don't believe that they have to have a real estate license. And so they're not bound by the same laws, the licensure requirements that a real estate, someone with a real estate license is. And so therefore, these salespeople, I think, promise more and say more than they really should. And I'm not sure how much accountability is going on with that to begin with. So there may have been times that homeowners in Sonoma Verde were promised things that neither the developer nor really the home builder planned to do, which caveat emptor laws really play into effect. Buyer beware. You really do have to understand what it is you're buying and what it is you're trying to do. So that is I think that's everything for. So that's P3 works, the resolution on P3, and so yeah, that's kind of the update. I am going to be asking the Iron Lady, who I call the Iron Lady, Adrienne Balcom, to join me. I think next Monday. She'll probably join me via Skype or something like that, where she can explain more. Actually, Adrienne Balcom, what's interesting is she is the second person to have moved into Sonoma Verde, the second homeowner. So she has been there from inception to now and has seen pretty much everything and can really answer some questions. So if you do have questions about about that you'd like for Adrienne Balcom to answer, or for those to be addressed, you're welcome to email Bunker Bob. I think I'll post the email. I think it's bunkerbob or bunkerbob at bunkerbob.com. So I think that's the address. If it's not, I'll post it on the description of this broadcast. So that's the Sonoma Verde pit administrator and the Sonoma Verde issues going on with that. I also want to just highlight the fact that there is going to be a winery coming into Sonoma Verde. It's really more of a boutique type thing, where this is something that was started when I was mayor, and it really meets well with what we found in the citizen survey. The citizen survey said that citizens would prefer businesses that are smaller and more small business, I guess, type restaurants and activities. They don't want the big box stores, things like that. So this little winery, it's owned by a couple that lives in High Point Lake Estates, which is just right outside of McLendon-Chisholm. A great couple. I'm excited that they're doing this, and it's really going to be more of like a wedding event place where you have your wedding reception. They're going to have wine tasting, that kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to see how wine grows out in this area. I know that there is a winery already in Rockwall. And I don't know if the soil is exactly the same, but it will be really nice. And I love the fact that this couple has a passion for bringing something like this to our city. So that was the zoning on that was approved. The preliminary platting, was approved at last night's hearing. So that's moving forward. Well, the next item on the agenda was amending the master fee schedule, and so this is something that I had spoken about yesterday, and was something that really I brought to light that this is going to probably be the beginning of a tax rate increase for our city. And the reason why is because of state law that was established that was written by State Representative Justin Holland from Rockwall, that really, I think, hurts small cities. And I think it really hurts the ability of small cities, because what's happened is that a city can no longer assess the fee schedule based upon the value of the home. What it is, so you have to use other methods. What the city council agreed to last evening was a price per square foot basis of a master fee schedule. And they're basing it on the fact that the average price per square foot for homes, or excuse me, the average square footage of homes in the city of McLendon-Chisholm is in the mid 4,000, around 400s, I guess. Let me say that again. The average price is in the mid 400s, not the square footage. So what that means is, if they're basing, what they did was they tried to calculate, okay, if the average is in the mid 400s, and this is what our fee schedule was resulting in, which, by the way, transformed our city income. When Scott Turnbull led us through that and recommended changing the master fee schedule to be more compliant with other cities, we realized that hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for the city had been missed for years. Why? Because you had very friendly mayors and city councils who are developer friendly, and when basically it hurt the individual homeowner who was building a custom home, for instance, but for a developer or a home builder that was building many homes, they basically paid very little on the fee. So they could build 50 homes and pay one price, and the same price that someone who's building one home was paying. And so Scott Turnbull found that, and we changed the fee schedule. It really did cause a little bit of an uproar with some of the developers and home builders in our city, but they recognized that all of the other cities were doing it too. So what this new fee schedule is showing is that they're going with $1.17 a square foot is going to be the basis of the fee schedule. We had, it was recommended that we go with $1.25, and I think Councilmember Turnbull was recommending that it be $1.25 per square foot, because it's a lot easier to go down if you want to later than to go up. And I think he has a point. So I talked with former Mayor Pro Tem Turnbull last night, and he has not looked at all of the numbers yet, and I asked him if he would have those numbers ready by next Thursday. He said he would. He thinks he can, so that we can kind of look at the housing starts for this year, what we're looking at, and exactly how much money is going to be lost in revenue for the city, something that this city council has not done yet, which I found fascinating, especially in the discussion last night, because the city administrator was repeated several times that we need to watch the trends to stay ahead of it, the trends. And I think what she meant was the housing start trends. So what essentially she's saying is when the housing cools off, when fewer houses are being built, well, then you're going to need to bump up and raise that square footage cost so that you can offset the income to the city. It's a lousy way to manage this process. It's why I think the state law is a bad idea for especially for small cities. I think small cities, type A general law cities, at least should have been exempted from this, but they weren't. I'm very curious, and I haven't taken a time to look at what Rockwall is doing about this, because every city has got to make this change. So I doubt that the Rockwall Hilarious Banner is going to report anything about this, because you actually have to have some intellect. You kind of have to have common sense, and of course the useful idiot of the liberal left, Landon Fisher, the reporter for the Rockwall Hilarious Banner, doesn't have the capacity and understanding to know why this is such a big deal. So you're not going to get any good news from or good reporting from the Banner to begin with. So if they do write something, I'll be very interested to see what it is. This should have been the front page news story last week, but of course it wasn't. Why? Because they focus on the irrelevant. Sound familiar? All right. So one of the questions, one of the questions that Lorna Kipp had asked was, do you think we will lose money in this? And that is an important question, a question that I think that Lorna Kipp should have known when she asked the question. So the answer is yes, you will lose money. This is a reactionary decision by the city council that should have been, that Adrian Balkum and Scott Turnbull have been talking about previously. And this council is coming in really on its heels. And so this is why I'm so frustrated. You've replaced you've replaced Scott Turnbull, a guy who really understands numbers and understands how this works, with Trudy Wosner, who's asking questions about who's going to clean up lunch at the private school when they're asking about using the school for the church for the school. This is what you deserve. We deserve the government that we elect. And so this will be an ongoing discussion. Talk to Scott Turnbull next Thursday, so stay tuned to that. Now we move to the establishment of the animal control issue. That was one of the things that it was interesting. One person got up and talked about how animal control. His comments basically were that the city administrator didn't negotiate well on the animal control issue, doesn't seem to realize this is not about a random lost pet. The animal control issue came to our attention when I was mayor. And it came to my attention because there was a vicious dog in one neighborhood, and there's really nothing that the sheriff could do about it because our ordinances had no teeth in it. And so the sheriff couldn't do anything about it really, unless the animal bit someone, right? And it did. And so this animal was, that was the only time that action could be taken. But the fact that this loose dog was terrorizing the neighborhood, there wasn't a lot that the city could do. And so when we started talking to the city of Rockwall, just saying, hey, if we get a call, can you come and, as rare as it is, can you come and take care of it? We'll pay you a premium for it. Their response was, it'll cost you about $75,000. Basically they wanted us to pay for a animal control officer, a truck, all of these things, and we're going, no, this is a very rare occurrence. Well, bottom line, it's finally gotten to a point where they found a company that does this. They work in Fate. They basically have a satellite facility in Fate. They offer 24/7, 365 service, and they're offering a 12-month contract with the city. And there is they average 80 runs a year. Okay, so this is not something that is a big deal. Okay. So what is the deal is the issue really is when there is a complaint, when there is a vicious dog. We're not talking about animal control taking a loose dog. If you lose your dog or something like that, that is not what this would be. Animal control would be used for. So if your dog gets lost, someone finds it. Next door is the best way to find your lost dog. But animal control is not going to be called in for something like that. Animal control will be called in when there is a real problem with an animal. And so I think there was some discussion during citizen comments by someone who really didn't look at what was being addressed at the meeting. And the city council decided to go with decided not to go with full service, which would have been cheap or fairly inexpensive overall, but I think their decision was somewhat wise, that it's $450 per call. And you're saying, well, that sounds like a lot of money. It is. But in most cases, when you have a situation where we would have to call in this service, the city would then file against the owner of this, and they would have to pay the $450 plus all court costs and fees that are associated with litigating this issue. So it will be a very expensive day for someone who has an animal that's out of control, and I think that's a good thing. That'd be a good lesson to learn. I can't imagine that we're going to be using this service very, very much, but I think that's the update on the animal control services. Now I want to just briefly talk about that we established a code enforcement officer. When I was mayor, the city administrator, Dave Butler, was the code enforcement officer. He was a former police officer from California, and so it was kind of natural for him to take that job. What they've done is, it appears as though they're going to be hiring Jim Simmons, the chief of the McLendon-Chisholm Fire Rescue Department. This is a guy who really is just chomping at the bit to have a hybrid department. He wants a police department. He wants to be the chief of the police and the fire and all of these great things, which are just imbecilic if the council were ever to start a police department, in my opinion. But Chief Simmons wants to be the code enforcement officer. The city's required to put to post notice for a code enforcement officer. The cost of it is probably, I think they're probably going to be adding $5,000-$6,000 to his salary for it. It's something that's necessary and needed, because there are times where we need code enforcement, but it's not something that we use a lot of. But I think as the city grows, we're going to need more and more of it. So I predict that Chief Jim Simmons is going to be our new code enforcement officer. I guess time will tell, and we will see about that. So that's that. Next is the sanitation services. And by the way, I'm not going through every issue on the agenda. I'm just going through the high points. And the city council wants to change the sanitation services. They want it. They don't like CWD. It's not a secret. It's an open secret. They don't like CWD. You had Jim Bloom and Herman Larkin, who voted against CWD. They wanted to go with Republic, and so basically they're just laying the groundwork to get rid of CWD. And so get ready, because we're going to have another trash service swap. But get ready, more importantly, because the cost of that trash service is going to be significantly more. So you get what you pay for, I guess, and that's kind of what they're kind of focusing on. So this is all a big ruse, in my opinion. It's funny, the municipal. They basically want to bring them back, and I found one of the funniest things about the discussion was when Herman Larkin talked. He says he wants to hear from the people, the civilians. He calls you and me civilians. I don't know what he is, but isn't he a civilian? It's citizen. Maybe talk about us as citizens, civilians. It's just the mindset of that comes out of their mouth. It's neither here nor there. It just hits me funny when we're talked about as civilians as opposed to citizens. So I guess civilians will need to be weighing in on that. That's what we do, that's what we did in the city survey. We actually asked the question about the trash service and did they like it or not. Last city survey, I'm not sure if that was added there or not, but that's something that you could have gotten into a city survey. But of course, Larkin and Kippett and all of the none of them wanted a city survey. They don't listen, folks. When they say they want to hear from the civilians, when Larkin says he wants to hear from the civilians, he doesn't. That is a complete sham. So when you go to city council, he's not listening. That's the thing. They've already made up their mind. CWD is gone. There are some perks that our city officials get from going with certain vendors. And when I was at the TML conference, as I went to a TML Texas Municipal League conference, I'll never forget that the biggest parties were held by these trash sanitation companies, and they really wanted my business. They wanted me to glob onto them and be their friends, and they wanted to make nice. They are good at sales, and this is big money. So that's important to understand. What I think is also has been missed in all of this is that I think it was Council Member Balcom who started investigating when this whole discussion about a new trash company was coming up. It was Councilmember Balcom. I've got it written here. She basically uncovered the fact that the trash company had not been charging people who were receiving services, and so they were getting free trash service and the city was not collecting anything from them. You see, the city gets a portion of what you pay. So in the overall assessment, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars that were lost because of poor management by that former company. So that's an important distinction to be reminded of. So I just wait and watch. Republic will soon be our new trash sanitation service provider. You will be paying more. I do want to mention this. There were some people who were frustrated over the new CWD, the cost of CWD because it was more. What it turns out is that they were not charged hardly anything. What they were being charged was not the appropriate amount. So for years they had been being underbilled by the sanitation service, and so they're outraged that CWD is actually charging them the correct rate. Well, I think it was I talked to Councilmember Balcom yesterday as well, and she highlighted the fact that imagine how they would have felt if we had gone with Republic. Those people would have been really outraged. Well, get ready, folks. It's coming. So there's not a whole lot you can do about that. Finally, at the last of the meeting, the brick campaign was again mentioned, and Councilmember Larkin is focusing on the fact that so Packer has donated the bricks. And Brett Packer, he's the guy who donated the bricks for the city hall. I don't understand this brick campaign now. This is a complete mystery. It was my understanding when I read through the proposal was that the cost of the bricks and having them engraved was going to be $20. Well, the bricks are being donated. So, but we're being charged $30 a brick. The other thing to remember is that the previous brick campaign program enabled you to put on 3 lines, and I think it was 16 letters per line. This new brick campaign, you get 3 lines with 13 letters in each. What I find interesting is the people who gave the monument, the big monument that's at City Hall, the people who donated the money for that monument, they also had purchased 3 bricks. And they purchased the bricks in honor of the man's grandfather, who served in World War I and World War II, his father and uncle, both of whom served in Korea, in the Korean War. Well, their last name is 12 letters. So what they had on the original bricks was the name of the grandfather, for instance, and then the Army, the U.S. Army, and World War I, WW1, WW2. You can't fit that on these new bricks. The old brick campaign was focused on creating a way to maintain to provide long-term maintenance for the memorial site. This new campaign provides none of that. Who is going to be responsible for the long-term maintenance of the campaign? And by the way, if the bricks cost $20, we're being charged $30, and Brett Packer donated the bricks, where's the other $10 going to? None of this makes sense. You know, the whole purpose of brick campaigns, the whole purpose, I don't care where you go, the whole purpose is to raise money. This is the first time I have ever seen a brick campaign where it's not about raising money. I thought, well, okay, they're not interested in raising money. They're just interested in honoring veterans. The problem is you don't have to be a veteran to buy a brick. So what's the purpose of this brick campaign? By the way, the people who donated the monument, that donated the money for the monument, they were sent a letter saying, hey, we've changed the brick campaign. Do you want your money back? Do you want to buy 3 bricks and get the difference back? Or do you want to just donate all that money? They basically said they're asking for their entire money back. They don't want to be a part of this charade anymore. It is a disgusting display of just people honoring themselves. And here's what's interesting: 13 letters. I went through and I counted. Everyone who's been part of the liberal left in this campaign, this brick, to get rid of the brick campaign and bringing liberalism to our city council. Every one of these people who are veterans, every one of them, from Mark and Lorna Kippett, Herman Larkin, Jim Bloom, Keith Short, Mike Donegan. Guess what? Every one of their names, first and last, with the space, adds up to no more than 13 letters. So they're going to be able to put whatever they want on their bricks, but not so for the people who actually donated the monument. Again, the people who donated the monument did not buy bricks with their names on it. They bought bricks with the names of those they wanted to honor. And they're not going to be able to do that because people want to are playing politics. First they played politics with public safety. Now they're playing politics with veterans. Disgusting, but that's the way this is, and that's the way it goes in McLendon-Chisholm today. Because obviously we have turned a corner, and as I've said before, get ready, folks, because taxes, they are coming. And it's going to be just a matter of time when that happens. And when that happens, we'll try to do our best to stop them from making it happen, because we don't need higher taxes. We need government that is constrained and restrained. So I do hope that you will stay with me. I'll do a 5 or 10 minute recap of today's show. I don't know that I can do a 5-minute recap. I may just have to do a 10-minute recap. Again, I want to remind you that on the show Monday, I'm going to try to get the Iron Lady on and see if we can talk about some issues specifically, probably with the PID. And then on next Thursday, I'll have council member Scott, or former Mayor Pro Tem Scott Turnbull, join me, and we can talk more about the cost of the master fee schedule. Thank you. I hope you have a great day. It's good to see you, and we will see you next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye.